after what you did in summer league and what's happened with the team, how does this season feel different for you than maybe the last couple?
For me personally, I think there's a different level of confidence and understanding. What needs to happen for me and for the team. I think summer league was a big boost for me in terms of really, even though it's obviously different than the real game, just like breaking it down and seeing what I can really do as you know a shooter and as other things as my role is going to expand a little bit this year. So I think it was important for me, and the confidence and understanding piece as well, just like knowing what I'm getting into this year since I've been through it 1.5 times. And I'm excited for it.
Speaking of that summer league, what is kind of the process of carrying over those performances into the regular season?
Yeah, I think obviously summer league is different than the real season. I think I have used it as a confidence booster though. In terms of what needs to be done this year for me. So I feel like the biggest part for me has been the work in between there and now. So I've been working my tail off, and I think it'll it's gonna pay off just because of the attention to detail that's been there in my workouts, and how I've been envisioning it. So I'm excited to see how things play out.
Bryce, you mentioned kind of an expanded role this season. What kind of have talks been like with whether it's Will or Austin or whoever, or what are you expecting for your role to actually turn into this season?
Yeah, obviously in the past, it's kind of been on and off with me in terms of DMPs or time in the G League in my first 2 years. So I feel like this year is just time for me to kind of solidify myself as an NBA player, undeniably. So it's a big time for me, big year for me, and I'm just looking to capitalize on any kind of opportunity that comes my way. So yeah, that's basically it.
Bryce, a couple things. First, what's it like having Taylor back on the court? Is he just ecstatic? You guys just so excited to play together finally again?
Absolutely, man. We spent a lot of time together this summer, and I can tell and see how excited he is just to be back. There's like little things that I've kind of just like took for granted or looked past, not necessarily took for granted, but kind of like overlooked that when I pay attention to him, I can see that he's really taking it in. So yeah, it's gonna be amazing to have him back on the court. So yeah, excited to play with him, and I think he's looked extremely well in our workouts since he's been cleared, and we've been playing a lot of pickup. So he's been moving really well, and he's been playing very well. So I'm excited for him.
And it's kind of hard to believe in your third year, but you're one of the leaders in the backcourt there. What did you take from playing with Colin and Jordan and even John Collins last few years that you can take into your leadership role?
Yeah, I think guys like those guys you mentioned, just the work ethic, that they have, and even someone like Colin, like the attention to detail that he has, and how seriously he takes being a professional. I think it kind of rubbed off on me, just to kind of see, especially, in my first few moments, like that first training camp for me when we were in Hawaii, just to see those guys go at it and really understand what it means to be a professional and to be in the NBA. So, I think that was really eye-opening for me, and, now I can, carry on that legacy that we have now to, our last couple classes of rookies. So
Bryce, when Will was in, talked about how important, the emphasis on defense is going to be this year for the whole team. Just in your time playing in the league and guarding guys, with really a ton of talent. What do you, what confidence have you gained that you can be a really good defender in this league?
yeah, I think that's probably the biggest focal point for me right now. I think I shot the ball pretty well last season, and becoming a two-way kind of 3-and-D type of guy is something that I'm looking forward to doing, something that I need to do. So I think, a lot of my work this summer has been catered towards that. I think I, showed a little bit in summer league, just how I'm kind of improving in that essence of the game. So, I think, as this preseason rolls in and, training camp first, I think, taking steps in training camp is very important as well, in terms of my momentum once the season rolls around. But, it's something that's incredibly important for me. And I think, for the trajectory of my career, I feel like it's something that I need to, crack down on. So it's going to happen.
Keontae took you guys to Dallas, it sounds like. What was that trip like, and kind of what did you guys learn about each other?
Yeah, it was a bunch of fun, man. We basically spent, 4 or 5 days just with each other all day, working out. We had a great facility, weight room and court. So we went to a concert. We watched football games together. So it was kind of just, a big way that, we could build chemistry, with the guys who showed up and even with the guys who didn't, they were asking about it. And I think it was big for us. And I think it's something that we should continue doing in the future, just because of how impactful it was to the people who were there. And, we really, looking past it, it was only 4 days, but, it gives you a different, type of connection with those guys, just because we're, in those places together. And but I think it was really important. I think, we should continue doing that for sure.
Bryce, you mentioned playing a lot of pickup games and obviously being around the guys in that trip. Who are some of your teammates that have stood out or impressed in those runs?
Yeah, like I said, Taylor has been playing really well. Coming back from his injury, and things like that. He's been full speed, looking really well. And another guy that has stuck out to me a lot is EJ. EJ Harkless has been playing really well, and the type of person he is, he fits with us really well. Whether he's on a two-way or whatever his future holds, he's a guy that we could really use. Just because of his tenacity and also his offensive, skill set. So he stood out to me a lot. But, everybody's been playing well, like Walter, Ace, Keontae. Really everybody's been, making strides in the right direction. So, I think it's going to be a fun year.
Bryce, what concert did you guys go to?
We went to a Young Boy concert. Yeah.
And then you mentioned the attention to detail and how you've been working your tail off between summer league and now. Mm-hmm. What has been the focus during that time?
Just really catering my workouts towards the game, what I'm really gonna do in the game, and spending a little bit of time expanding my game as well. But like I said, the defense portion of it, working, getting stops, help defense, stuff like that, and then just picking up where I left off last season in terms of my offensive game. So I'm excited for it to translate because I know it will, God willing. So yeah, it should be a fun season, like I said.
You're really good. All right, thanks, Bryce. Appreciate you. Yeah.